Hello everyone. With how many unsolved missing persons cases we've been talking about, and with how many of those have been ending tragically, I think it's always good to sprinkle in a case that has more of a happy ending, if you want to call it that. Well, let me warn you, it doesn't make this case any less brutal or any less terrifying, so please be prepared. But I also think this case is a very good warning and a very good example of how our justice system has failed once again over and over again. On October 16th of 2023, police would be called to the home in the Kenmore area of Akron, Ohio, a city just south of Cleveland. The owner of the home had called police because she believed a family friend had broken into her detached garage in her backyard and was hiding inside. But not only was he hiding inside this garage, but he also seemed to have a woman being held captive in there with him that he had severely beaten. And all of this would be captured on police body cam footage.
What's going on? How do we get in? Can we get in the door?
You have to keep him inside the door. We don't care. I don't care. My parents are here. I can't come. I just don't hope this camera. He used to live here, so he can tap into anything. But we have cameras up for other reasons.
Right, no, I got you. You know he's in there for a fact?
I know for a fact.
You can kick your door. You can kick it in.
I swear to God. Go ahead. Please. This girl, I don't know what's wrong with this girl.
Oh, there's a girl in there with him?
Yes. I told them this on the... I told them this. There's a girl in there. She's very slim. My husband said he didn't really get a good look at her, but he's yelling at her. Before I beat the living fuck out of her faces, she can't see out of her eyes.
Okay.
So this is why I'm nervous. This is why I've been calling his officer all morning, and I don't even know if that's even the right thing to do.
You know 100%.
I know 100%.
Now, police have proceeded to surround the shed, and for nearly 5 minutes of the body cam footage, they seem to be casually waiting around and deciding how they're going to open this garage door, waiting for a tool and waiting for backup. However, when people seen this body cam footage, they were pissed because you can hear the police laughing and joking around during this entire time. And when you really look at the whole picture that they're standing around joking and laughing while there is a woman being held captive just feet away from them inside of this garage, it's honestly embarrassing on the cops' part and disgusting that they were acting this manner. And again, it pissed a lot of people off, me included. There seemed to be zero urgency from these police officers. The homeowner was more urgent than the police were.
What scenario did you see that you might need that in?
It's weird. You've been on 20 how many years? You haven't used it yet? It's weird.
Wednesday, that's it going out.
Yeah. Ricky, I can't even speak now. I think I'm having a stroke.
Craft's got time. He's like, oh, I didn't see him in the book. I'm like, okay.
Then you called you're stuck in the elevator. We're like... Joe said he might have something. He's got something with a flat head that he might be able to pound it up.
I don't, but there's not, it's like flat on the bottom.
Yeah, it's like a normal one.
No.
But eventually, they would start to pry the door open, and I have to say, it was just really awkward watching them trying to move the statue out of the way. You think they would have pre-planned all of this. Like, they had enough time when they were standing around laughing and joking. The whole thing just seemed very unorganized. It was as if it was a bunch of guys that dressed up as cops that day to play cop and robbers. Let me know down below what you think.
William, last chance!
Akron, please, better come out!
Come on now, with your hands up! Coming?
No.
Come on now!
Nothing in your hand!
Nothing in your hands!
Now! Now!
You're good, buddy!
Okay.
Coming out or not? Can you see him?
Get out here now!
Come out now! Come out now!
Bro, you're gonna get fucked up in a second. You better come right the fuck out now. Now!
He's up in the attic. Come out.
No, I don't see him.
Keep everything out of your hands.
He's in the attic. He's in the attic. He's coming
Keep everything out of your hands.
Keep your hands up, man. Keep your hands up.
We'll go hands on. Put it down.
Drop it. Drop. No, not your whole body. Get up. Turn around and walk backwards. Walk towards us. Walk towards us. Keep your hands up. Put your hands up.
Hey, we'll cuff. We'll cuff.
Hey!
Take your face that way.
Just keep coming. Watch your step. Right there. You get that?
There's a female in there.
Come on out here. Can I get shoes?
Now this man right here that is standing around and whining about wanting shoes after being arrested, this man would turn out to be 33-year-old William Mozingo. When I say this guy has a shoddy past, his rap sheet it's deplorable. He had a long list of charges and he had literally been deemed a serial kidnapper. Now sometime in 2022, William was charged with 2 counts of drug possession, but the charges before that are what made news and were a haunting reflection of what was to come. In the early 2010s, William was arrested in an unknown case, but was charged with 3rd-degree felony abduction. By 2017, William would once again be arrested for abduction and aggravated menacing after abducting a woman named Mackenzie Maston. And as far as I've seen, he was released in December of that year for those charges. Mackenzie would later go on News Nation and say this.
During those 3 days, he had us locked up in a room with a knife. He kept saying that we weren't going to be able to go back home to my parents. I kept begging him to just let me go home to my mom and dad. He would continuously put a knife to our throat and saying that he was going to kill us and that I was never going to get to go home, that I didn't deserve to go home to my family. And he would threaten to break my jaw if, I cried or yelled for help or anything like that. And at one point, he even took a fan cord out of the stand and wrapped a fan cord around his own brother's neck and was choking him and beating him in the head and laughing till he was unconscious. And he would continuously beat on us.
You were with Mozingo's own brother, who was also being held captive. Ultimately, there were terrible things that happened to Chloe. She was doused with gas. She was beaten with a baseball bat. Did some of these things happen to you and Mozingo's brother as well?
Yes, he would continuously beat on us. He gave me, my eyes were all blacked out and swollen from him doing that to us. He put a knife to our throat. He was throwing and smashing beer bottles at the wall by our heads. And like I said, he was choking and beating his brother in the head too and laughing the entire time. And had us locked in that room for 3 days. It was probably the most scariest experience of my life.
It's astounding. He was on parole when he did this to you. You were the 2nd victim of Mozingo, and yet all he got was 2 years in prison.
At some point in this timeline, in this time frame, he also held a woman at knife point in a Walmart bathroom, and that also made news. So this guy wasn't unknown to police. He wasn't unknown to the media, yet he seemed to be getting arrested and released over and over and over again for the exact same thing. Now in 2019, he would do it again, but even worse. William would once again make the news after going to prison for abducting and beating an ex-girlfriend on 2 separate occasions within the same month. Court records would show that on April 4th of that year, William beat and tried to strangle his 29-year-old ex-girlfriend, as well as held a knife to her throat. He also restrained her and refused to let her go for 4 days. Now, somehow she ended up getting away from him and reporting all of this to police on April 8th. An arrest warrant ended up being issued. However, just days later on April 12th, the ex-girlfriend would end up being found topless, lying in the road on the eastbound lane of the 3100 block of Cobbler Road. Her undergarments were also found in the middle of the road. She was highly intoxicated and had suffered severe head trauma. Now, this attack seemed to take place in an abandoned home in the area, and she seemed to have somehow escaped and made her way to the road and gotten help. She'd later tell police that a 23-year-old relative of William's had been the one that had assisted and helped kidnap her and beat her. Now, after all of this, William and this relative were still on the loose, and they allegedly tried to flag down a passing driver and get a ride to Canton. However, the driver instead took them to the police department, thankfully, and they were then arrested. Now, in this case, William was later charged with a felony DV, felonious assault, and trespassing. However, he somehow was let out once again, because that is how we get to today's case. So essentially, what we see here is this man had a history of kidnapping, attacking women, holding them hostage for days, and he just seemed to do it again and again and again. How many times does it take for the justice system to see this and say, okay, we can't allow this man to go back into public, because he clearly isn't learning his lesson. He clearly isn't changing his ways. He doesn't see anything wrong with what he's doing, clearly, if he continues to do it over and over and over again in the same fashion. He truly is a serial kidnapper. And I'm surprised he's not a serial killer at this point, because what he was doing to these women could have led to them dying. Severe head trauma, choking them, holding knives to their throats, and threatening to slit their throats. Clearly, this man has no place in society, in my opinion. and clearly he doesn't want to be part of it. But let's get back to today's case and the reason that we're all here, because William was once again let out, and he once again did all of this again to today's victim. After police ended up detaining William, it was time to rescue the woman inside of the shed. But again, in this case, the police fell incredibly unsympathetic and very uncaring towards this victim, as we see in the body cam footage. Keep in mind, a woman that was just traumatized, tortured, and held captive for 4 days. They yell at her to get down from the plywood ceiling hideout that William had forced her to get into, but she physically could not. Not only was it extremely high up in there, especially to fall down onto the floor or into all of the stuff that was crowded into that shed, but it would turn out she had a broken arm and fingers. So police spent another long while moving things around, trying to get this ladder in a place that they found in the shed so that she could get down. And I want to say they could help her get down, but they didn't even help her get down. But when she would finally climb down, the state of her was extremely shocking.
Okay, what do you need to get down? Let me get this ladder, okay?
Hey, 1 second, dude. Hold up. Hey, let me move these ramps. God damn.
Get a little closer.
Is there anybody else that wants to do this? No?
Alright, can you reach that? Reach that ladder.
You see where this is? You want to wait a second? Get it closer? No, here. Just kick this out. Hold that ladder tight. I'm going to move this. Oh, okay. And then we can get it together. Nah, fuck them. Nah, fuck them. You don't need no boots.
Alright, you can reach it. Come on
Big
out.
man can fucking walk himself. Oh,
There's no one else up there?
where do you live at, dear? Thompson? How far away is that?
Like 30 minutes, like close to Chardon.
Why don't you have a seat right there? Why don't you have a seat right there on that stool?
You probably would have yeah, probably have, where's she at? Up there also?
Yeah. Why don't you just sit down there?
You guys have water.
We'll get you some stuff here.
Car number 12.
I'll go grab you a bottle of water.
Yes, hold on.
Is there any weapons up there, dear?
Is there any weapons or anything up there? No.
There's no
Don't think
apartment
so.
number, just says on the 3rd floor, male and female throwing things out of the apartment.
Obviously, because facial hairs.
Are you, what's that?
Oh, you want this?
Yeah, that's what probably would.
This woman turned out to be 23-year-old Chloe Jones, who had been missing for 4 days at this point. Chloe was a mother to a 4-year-old son, and she knew William but wasn't very close to him at all. However, on that fateful day, William had offered her to give her a ride, and she accepted the ride, but William did not take her home. Instead, he took her to that shed and he began to torture her. And the details that would come out of what William did to Chloe were horrifying, and they mirrored exactly what he did to other victims. During those 4 days, William tied Chloe up, doused her in gasoline, and continuously threatened to light her on fire. He then beat her head to toe with a baseball bat in his own fists. When he wasn't beating her, he was holding a knife to her throat and threatening to slit her throat. When he wasn't holding a knife to her throat, he was choking her and threatening her that if she passed out, he would slit her throat once again. Imagine being choked and trying not to lose consciousness because your attacker is threatening to murder you, which is something you can't really control. You're not getting enough oxygen into your brain. your body is going to pass out. It's just the mental torture he was putting her through. Threatening to light her on fire, threatening to murder her. Everything he did to her was not only physical torture, it was mental torture. But it wasn't just that. He was forcing her to urinate on herself. I don't think they ate in those 4 days. I can't even imagine what else he was doing to her, if he was essaying her, or what else he was doing, what his top intention was to holding her captive there. If he was, it was not mentioned. However, when he wasn't brutally beating her and torturing her, he was cuddling her in between all of that. And this entire 4 days, he was forcing her to stay awake so that she could fully understand everything he was doing to her. He did not want her to sleep. He did not want her to pass out. He wanted her to stare him in the face as he did all of this to her and understand that he was doing it. He's the worst of the worst. He is a psychopath, in my opinion. That is just incredibly horrifying. Now, we rag on police a lot, and in this case, we're ragging on police a lot because this team was awful, in my opinion. Just the way they interacted with Chloe and the whole situation, treating it as a joke, not taking it as seriously as it seemed to be. But oftentimes, it's not the police's decision whether or not these offenders get away and get off. It's the court system. And the fact that the court system let this terrifying individual out over and over and over again is the real injustice here. Just to hear what he was doing to these women. He wasn't just, beating them up, equally as awful. He was mentally torturing them, making them think that they were going to die at any second at his hands, and he wanted them to understand that. But then he was bringing them to the brink of death and then pulling them back every single time. That is some psychopathic serial killer shit if I've ever heard it. And again, I am surprised he did not kill any of these women, whether it be accidentally, because it seems like he really enjoyed the torture and got off on the torture of it all. But again, from what he was doing to them, they could have died very easily. It was one wrong move, 1 second longer choking them, they could have died. And the fact that he was allowed to get off over and over and over again is just horrendous, that this man was allowed to walk the streets. And then string it all together and to see that in between beating her and torturing her, he was cuddling her and trying to make her feel comforted and safe. That again is a twisted mind tactic that he was doing to try to convince her that it's okay, I actually do love you and care about you, and me beating you is showing you love. That is just, he's awful. This man is one of the worst people in the fucking planet. This is like the worst DV kidnapper mixed all together, molded together, and thrown into William Mozingo. And the entire time, Chloe didn't know if she was going to get out of that shed. I wouldn't either, considering the shit that he was doing to her. She didn't know if she was ever going to see her son again, saying, and I quote, "I thought about him every day. I just saw his face in my head every day," end quote. But Chloe had more than just psychological trauma from this attack. After she was rescued, she would spend 3 days in the ICU. Chloe had a skull fracture, facial fractures, facial paralysis, a brain bleed, a broken arm, broken fingers, and bruises across her body bigger than a hand's width. She literally went through hell and back. Chloe's mother, Jessie, worried for days, wondering where her daughter was, and she finally got answers when Chloe called her from the hospital. Imagine being a mother getting that phone call.
She said that she had been abducted, and she said that she had a broken arm and her face had fractures.
While in recovery, Chloe would end up going on the news and speaking about her abduction, and she wanted to be an example of what could happen to you if you get into a stranger's car or into the car of someone you don't know very well. After everything she went through, Chloe did not have to do that. She could have stayed home and recovered, but instead, this woman has strength to get on the news and be able to express yourself like that and talk about what just happened to you just days prior. But she did it because she wanted to make a difference in the world after what happened to her and take some kind of positive out of all of this horrible, disastrous mess. So I'll let Chloe speak now.
It was petrifying.
This picture represents what Chloe Jones looked like before surviving what she called 4 days of torture.
You can see my face. It's I wouldn't wish this on anybody.
Chloe is bruised from head to toe. She's wearing a hood to protect a still healing skull fracture. But this 23-year-old wants everyone to hear her story.
And I want to tell the young girls from across America, it's not safe to get in, cars with people you don't know or meet up with friends through friends.
When Chloe met William Mozingo, she thought he was harmless. When he offered her a ride, she didn't think twice. But police say Mozingo had no intention of taking Chloe home. Instead, he reportedly took her to a shed, locked the door, and held her captive.
It was terrifying, you know, like being in fear for your life, like countless of times I can even count of like how many times he's threatened my life.
For 4 days, Chloe says Mozingo abused her, physically beating her with a baseball bat, mentally taunting her with the idea that she'd never be able to see her 4-year-old child again. What got you through?
My son did. I thought about him every day. I just saw his little face in my head every day.
Chloe's mom hopes this 4th case ends his ability to walk the streets a free man.
I am angry. This is not acceptable.
The damage has already been done, but now Chloe wants justice done to the man who was accused of nearly ending her life.
You don't deserve to, you know, get to live life the way normal people should, and I hope that there is something that will come to light for him.
Now, when it comes to William Mozingo and what is now happening with him after all of this, I read 2 different things. I read one point he was held without bond due to his parole violation, but then I also see noted he had a $100,000 bail. So I don't know which one it is, honestly. However, he would be charged in Chloe's attack with felonious assault, parole violation, escape, unlawful restraint, kidnapping, abduction, and 2 counts of strangulation. And he would then go on to plead not guilty. The audacity of this man. Now, the last I seen online was that he had a court date in January. However, I could not find any follow-up on his case after that. I have not seen one thing. I've tried to search court records. I've tried to search any more mugshots or like any news articles, and there's just nothing else. But honestly, I feel like this case should be a lot bigger of a story than it is. I think it should be bigger on the news than it is, especially when this man was allowed to get off over and over and over again after torturing these women in that way, or only getting a minor sentence. The public should be aware of this man if he's continuously allowed to be out there kidnapping women and torturing them like this. He's literally a maniac on the loose. And he clearly doesn't give a shit. He clearly does not care about what he does to women. He doesn't care who he hurts, how he hurts them. He gets off on it, in my opinion. There's no other way that he would continue to do this. What else would he be getting out of doing this over and over again? In my opinion, he gets off on this. There's clearly something wrong in his head. And someone like that, in my opinion, should not be allowed in the public. The public is not safe, clearly, with this man out. And he continues to prove that over and over and over again, yet the courts continue to just let him out. It's ridiculous, especially since he's doing something to the most violent degree, just above murder. And the fact that I can't find anything else on his case, I really truly hope that this time the courts are going to lock him up and they aren't going to let him go ever again. I truly hope that for all of the women in Ohio and all of the women that this man could victimize in the future. Again, this isn't just a simple DV case. This is absolutely horrific what this man was doing to these women. I'm so glad that he did not murder any of these women. I'm so glad that Chloe's alive. I'm so glad that Mackenzie's alive. And I'm so glad that they're able to tell their stories now. But this can't continue to happen. This can't continue to happen to these women. It could be your mother, your sister, your daughter, your friend. You can move to a completely different state or escape to a whole different state and continue to do this. You're not just safe because you live in a different state from this man if he's allowed out. It's horrific and it's scary and it's terrifying. And I did say at the beginning of the video that this was going to be more of a happy ending kind of video, but honestly, it's not if this man is allowed to walk freely. There's no information to say that he has walked freely. I'm just truly hoping that the court system looks at all the mistakes they've made in the past with this man and finally rectify that by slamming the doors on him and never letting him out again, because this is terrifying. This is horrific, and none of these women deserved this, and no other women deserve to go through this. But I'm going to leave this all with you. All of these women are incredibly strong, especially Chloe and Mackenzie, to have spoken out about what happened to them. I want to know how you're all feeling, because I could sit here and rant about this all day, but I'm sure you understand my point and how upset I am about this case. These cases where things are easily preventable just make me so angry. Like the fact that they just had to lock them up and none of this would have happened. It's ridiculous. But let's have a chat about this down below. I am very interested on how you all feel about this. If there are any other cases that you want me to look into, let me know as well. And as always, I hope you all stay safe out there. Lock your windows and doors. As Chloe said, do not get into a car with a stranger. And I hope to see you all in the next video.